It's a long, long time ago now, but it's absolutely unforgettable. It was the wedding that had the whole world watching and a dress that had everybody talking. Princess Diana's iconic wedding dress was designed by David and Elizabeth Emmanuel.
Well, now, for the first time in over 25 years, that dress is to be put on show for the general public in a display called Royal Style in the Making at Kensington Palace. And Elizabeth Emmanuel joins us this morning. Good morning to you. Thanks very much for joining us. I mean, what a dress.
Good morning.
It was, because it's such an iconic dress. How is it for you having it back on display now after all this time?
It's absolutely wonderful. It's quite emotional in some way because, you know, she's not with us anymore. And when I look at that dress and it brings back memories of that amazing time that we spent together, you know, getting ready for the wedding.
And I can't imagine what it must have been like when, you know, you had the call. How did it first happen when you were given that commission to design the dress? Because you must have felt the excitement, the creativity that you were going to be able to do, but also I imagine that pressure, knowing that millions of eyes would be watching her emerge from the carriage and would all be looking at your dress.
Well, it was amazing. I remember getting the call when I was actually with another client at the time. And when Diana said, would you do me the honour of making my wedding dress? It was that second that I knew that our lives would never be the same again. You know, it was such a huge responsibility. And to be honest, quite stressful because we were so young at the time. But we wanted to make it the ultimate fairy tale princess dress.
And who was really in charge as the weeks went by and the designs chopped and changed and you gradually honed it down to the extraordinary thing that you created? Who was in charge? Was it you and your husband or was it Diana?
Well, I think Diana came with us because of our style, so she loved what we did anyway. So we just presented her with lots of sketches. She tried on a sample wedding gown, and when she tried that on, we knew that was the perfect silhouette for her. You know, very 80s, big puffy sleeves, big skirt, and it was perfect. And the only thing we needed to do was to make it entirely different to anything else, put as much embroidery and sequins and pearls on as possible to make it very hard for people to copy.
If you were doing it today, how different would it look?
It wouldn't look different at all. It was a perfect dress for the time. It was the 80s. It was so romantic. It was creative and it was fairy tale. So I think it's definitely a dress of its time.
How hard is it when you're creating a royal wedding dress like that? Because, of course, everybody wants to know what it's going to look like. There's the press speculation, there's the snooping around to see if they could find any clues. You had to be quite devious, didn't you, to keep it all under wraps at the time?
Oh, yeah, everybody was trying to find out what the dress was going to look like, and we had to leave false trails in the rubbish bins. We had camera crews in the flats opposite us trying to peer through the windows. So we tried to keep a sense of humour about it. And we even made a spare dress just in case the secret got out. Fortunately, we never had to finish it.
Didn't you also have to make a sort of like a super bib in case she spilled something on it at some point that you could quickly replace it with?
Yeah, that's right. We tried to think of everything that could possibly happen. So we made a spare overskirt, just in case she dropped coffee down it or orange juice or something. And so that was all ready, and you wouldn't have noticed it if we'd had to use it.
Can I just ask you a question just going forward in time, a number of years? Where were you when you heard that she'd died? How did you hear the news?
I just remember exactly. I was in bed, actually, and the phone rang, and it was my dad. And he told me to put the television on. And at that time, she hadn't died, but she was sort of in hospital and very ill. And it was, I was in shock, and I still think back to that. It was the most terrible, terrible time. Terrible.
And I saw a photo of you. I was looking through at her funeral. I know you were upset at the time then. And I think even to this day, people sort of wonder if that hadn't have happened, if she was still with us today, how different things might have been.
Exactly. I mean, she was just such an amazing woman. And, you know, we were so privileged to have known her during that particular time when she was just 19, I think. And we were making her wedding dress. It was a very intimate time. And we got to know her really well. And she was wonderful and so sweet and kind.
You're not in any way a political person. You're not a journalist, Elizabeth, but you're like all of us. You have views on things. And I'll just ask you a sort of a double question, really. Firstly, what did you think of the Panorama interview when it went out? I'm sure you watched it when it went out. And what did you think when you realised, as we all did a short while ago, for sure, that that interview was purloined on completely false pretences? What were your feelings on those two issues? Watching it go out, your thoughts about it afterwards, and then discovering that she'd been conned into it.
Well, I remember watching it and kind of, I suppose I couldn't believe that she was really doing an interview like that. But, you know, she was incredibly vulnerable. And I think it must have been hard for her to know who her friends were, who she could trust. And you know, she was in a very lonely place. So I think it's terrible what happened and you know, awful.
When we're looking at the wedding dress, you know, obviously preparing now for it to go on public display, it was reproduced in The Crown, wasn't it? How was that whole process? How was it for you seeing it reproduced?
I didn't actually know it was going to be in The Crown until I read about it. When I saw it, I think it looked very strong. You only saw it for a few seconds, but not nearly as amazing as the real thing. And I think anybody going to the exhibition, they'll have a chance of seeing it really close up, all the little pearls and sequins, and just to look at it and know that each one was sewn on with love, you know, by hand, each pearl. And there's thousands of them. So I think, you know, it'll be extraordinary experience to go and see that dress close up.
You have to see the real thing to be able to get it. And I also had a question, because we've seen Boris Johnson get married to Carrie Simons recently. She rented her wedding dress, we understand. I wondered what you thought of the idea, because traditionally, of course, you know, the wedding dress is a big deal. You want to go out and buy it, but perhaps the bride never wears it again. It's never seen again. What do you make of perhaps this latest fashion of people renting their wedding dresses?
I think that's absolutely fine, and she looked gorgeous, actually. I loved her dress that she was wearing. So I like it when there's hand-me-downs as well. You know, that you can completely rejig a wedding gown that perhaps your mother wore or grandmother, and that could be very fashionable at the moment.
There's one slightly sad aspect to this, other obviously than the obvious thing that Diana's no longer with us, and that is the situation between you and David, who designed the dress together. And it led to a dispute between the two of you. It's been widely reported, and it's ongoing all these years later. Is that any closer to being resolved, Elizabeth? Do you think that there'll be peace in this argument about who did what, who had the responsibility for this design? Because that's what it seems to be about.
Well, I really hope there will be peace, and it has been going on a long time, and it's really sad. I'm so sad by the whole thing.
Bet you are.
But, you know, let it be a warning for all young designers to make sure if they go into a partnership or into a business that they absolutely know what each partner is doing, you know, and to clarify at that stage. I think that's a real lesson to be learnt.
Yes, well, I think the Romans had an expression for it. I can't remember the Latin, but it was basically get it in writing.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Listen, well, anyway, I hope that is resolved to everybody's satisfaction, yours and your former husband's.
Thank you.
But many congratulations on an iconic design. I can't wait to come and look at it, actually.
Amazing.
Are you going to go and see
that detail? I'd love to.
Yeah,
see
I'd
that
love
detail close up. And like I was saying, you know, just such an iconic dress that I think is instantly recognisable, isn't it?
Yeah. And my wife, Judy, wants to go and see it too. And she sends her love, by the way. She says hi.
Oh, wonderful. Send my love back.
I will.
Thanks so much,
Thanks
Elizabeth. Good to talk to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
OK, bye.